The legislators.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside Government for the spring 2019 semester. We're already chatting as we're going. At Key Community College and broadcast on Time Warner, Verizon Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as WIN 89.1, the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. School districts across New York State are knee-deep in the process of putting their budgets together that will go before the voters on Tuesday, May 14th. The Auburn School District is no different, and in their case, they are faced with a gap between revenues and expenses as of this week of about $2 million. Tonight we have on Superintendent of Schools, Jeff PIROZZOLO, to give us a district update and talk about where they are in the budget process as well as some other items. Welcome back.
Well, thank you for having me again. I can't believe you still have me back.
Well, you know, you and the mayor do each the beginning, so each semester, so we appreciate that. But let's not talk about budgets first. Okay. Let's talk about what everybody's talking about, and that's the weather. So what goes into calling a snow day?
I'll tell you, this week is, again, you read the forecast and you're not seeing it. Even like yesterday, I was looking at the 15-day and saw nothing, and now there's a storm coming in on Sunday again. So, I mean, these storms just keep popping up, but you know, really it starts at 4:15 in the morning. Superintendents, we start messaging each other, trying to get a feel for what everybody's thinking about doing. I make
so all of you in the network of, let's say, the Q Onondaga, both
correct,
states.
all 9 of us.
Okay.
9 component superintendents. We call each other, we text each other, but I get a hold of Larry Garuccio. Because our guys come out.
He is for those.
He is our director of facilities.
Okay.
He has his guys out. Our snow plowers usually are out about 2 o'clock in the morning. So we try to get updates on where they're at, how they're moving along. A lot of times Larry will call Mike Talbot, who works for the city, to get an update on how the streets are going on in the city, as we did this morning. You know, and then we've got to make a call. We've got to look at, you know, what the weather looks like.
By the way, do not have to call me at 6 o'clock in the morning anymore.
Well, I know. Hopefully I don't have to call you anymore this year, but I know.
Well, that was where I was going with this. How many have you used so far?
We've used all 6 of our days. We had 6 built into the calendar.
And the governor kind of gave you a freebie on Monday.
No, he did not.
Oh, he did not?
No.
So it sounded like he was being very nice on Sunday night, where he said if districts needed that extra day, they would not be impacted on their school funding.
Yeah, as long as they follow the education law on it, which is you have to use all your vacation time up, which would mean April break and Memorial Day break, in order to get a waiver for that.
So it was a great press release on
It was, and I think there was some misquotes on that as well. So we've got to follow the law.
So you've got no snow days left.
We have none left.
At this particular stage, will you have the Friday before Memorial Day?
Correct.
That's a training day, if I remember correctly.
No, it's actually scheduled as a vacation day.
Vacation.
So,
is that gone or is that still on right now?
No, it's still on for a vacation day.
Unless
but if we use one more day,
okay,
then we will have to do that. But I do have a staff development day. So if we did have a snow day.
I only say this because it's only February 28th, buddy.
Right, I hear you, and that's my concern as well. But if we do use one more snow day, I could use that as a staff development day.
Okay.
So students wouldn't be impacted. But if we use 2 more days, then you're looking at going into April break.
Oh, if you use 2, you'll go into April break?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Not the May date.
No, we would be doing both.
Oh, both.
The Friday
okay.
before and one day in April.
Okay. All right.
So you know, we're really trying to be careful, but again, it's student safety.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we base our decision on. High winds, down power lines, trees could be dropping. We didn't have power the other day.
Right. So on Monday you had Owasco and Fleming had power outage. I guess there was a water issue up in Owasco. Mm-hmm. It was just everything happened all at once.
All at once, yeah.
I do have a viewer question from a 6-year-old who loves school, and I think this is the question: why do we have 2 breaks? Why is there a February break where you just had a break 40 days ago?
And you know, that's a great question, because our superintendents keep saying, why are we still doing a February break? You know why they instituted that years ago.
Well, originally it was an energy savings issue. You shut the buildings down and you'd have minimal heat for 2 weeks.
Correct.
So why are you doing it?
I don't think it's ever gone away.
Okay.
You know,
Is it time for it to go away?
You know what? We talk about it all the time. And, you know, I've even had teachers come up to me and say, why do we still do this? You know, that it interrupts our math program, our ELA program, but it doesn't seem to go away. And again, you know, we have a certain contractual amount of days that we have to get in every year, and we have no problem getting our 186 days in, you know, from September until the end of June. So really, if you don't take those 5 days off in February, you still would have to find those 5 days somewhere in the calendar.
Okay. Or have a shorter school year.
Or start a little bit later. Yeah,
okay.
because you can't end later because of the Regents exams.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, you know, that's really what it comes down to.
Well, I hope the 6-year-old watches the show and he'll have an answer. So before we get to budget, you also have an emergency project going on next door at the middle school, or excuse me, the junior high school. What is it?
So, as we were doing our smart schools project.
This is the money to bring Wi-Fi technology that was part of a bond act 5 years ago.
Correct.
Okay.
And we finally, all of our Promethean boards are up, and all of our buildings are completely Wi-Fi inside
Promethean board
and out.
sounds like it's something from the Avengers or
Well, our Promethean panels, they're actually 75-inch interactive TVs, but it's a computer.
Okay.
And it's all touch screen. It's going wonderful, and I would suggest if you should go into one of our buildings and check them out because they're incredible.
But you're over at West, excuse me, at the junior high school at East, and what happened?
When we were running the wire, there's a drop ceiling at in the gymnasium there, and they noticed way up 50 feet up in the air, some of the ceiling there had fallen down onto the drop ceiling. As they looked up, we call them hockey pucks. It's a glue adhesive that keeps those stuck up there. They're hot. They're full of asbestos.
So was that something that was just discovered on top of what you were already doing?
Correct.
And so your original cost of the project was how much?
This project, it was going to be anywhere between $250,000 and $400,000.
And now you're
closer to $1 million.
And what now has to be done?
So the state has given us till August 30th to get all of the abatement done. So it is not dangerous. These are adhesive.
So kids are still and staff are still in the gym.
Yep, we do air quality tests once a month. But, you know, again, they're all encapsulated. But because we know it's there now and some of these pieces of the panel have come down, now it has to be fixed.
And so now that cost goes up to roughly $1 million?
It does, because what we also have a heating issue in our gymnasium. It's awful cold. If you've ever been to Auburn Junior High in the wintertime to play basketball, it's very cold in there. Yeah, wow. Yeah, actually, I haven't been in there to play basketball either. Yeah. I'm just in there. If you go in there, years ago they used to have radiators that ran on the walls.
Okay.
Those were taken out years ago in another capital project. The problem is the ducts, the heating ducts are so high up in the air, none of the heat falls down. And the other issue is when they put the slate roof in.
Did they not figure out the old adage that heat rises?
Correct. And they never put insulation in there. So now insulation has to be put in there. The ducts.
And I'm assuming you can't recover those bad decisions from contractors.
No,
okay.
Absolutely not.
So the $1 million that you're going to do, right now you have to go into some fund balance for that, correct?
Yes.
Will you get reimbursed for part of that? But that will not come into the following year.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's the reason why we're using the fund balance. If we use the fund balance, we get reimbursed 85%, and we will get that reimbursement the following school year.
So in the end, you're looking at this as mostly going to be about $150,000, and then you do have to finish it by the end of the before you start your new academic year.
The abatement has to be done.
Okay.
And then, you know, we will have it all tightened up and ready to go for the physical education classes to start in September. Again, we're open to have the abatement done in July.
Right.
You know, we want to get this done as soon as possible. But again, all the drawings have to be sent to the state. They all have to be approved, just like a capital project. So, you know, you've got to still work through the state department on that.
So speaking of the state of New York, the governor released his budget last month. How did Auburn do?
Not well, not well.
So what did you get? Did you get an increase?
We did get an increase.
So roughly about what percentage?
Around 2%.
And what's that relate to in total dollars that the district will get?
A few $100,000.
I mean overall. How much will Auburn get?
From foundation aid completely, it'll be about $30 million.
Okay. And your annual budget is what?
Right this year is $76 million.
Okay. So that is not what you expected?
No, we were hoping for a lot more.
So do you expect the legislature will come in as they normally do and add at least a percent or two?
We're hoping. You know, usually what our increase, it could be anywhere between $100,000 and $150,000.
On top of what the governor?
Correct. That's usually what it is.
Well, I ask you that because earlier this month the governor announced he's got a $2.3 billion with a B shortfall.
Yep.
So what are your, and I know you now for the first time, if I remember correctly, do not have anybody in the majority
Correct.
of the Senate or the Assembly for this district. I don't know if it's ever been the case. What are those minority members telling you?
And again, I did read this weekend, though, that $2.3 billion is sort of shrunk a little bit. When they're relooking at their numbers, it's under $1 billion now. So hopefully,
it always is when they want to spend the money.
Well, of course it is. So they've got other ideas, probably. I'm going to tell you, I've met with Senator Antonacci and Senator Helming and Assemblyman Finch, and I got to give kudos to Senator Helming. She did get me a meeting with Senator Shelley Mayer, who is the head of the Educational Finance Committee. I'm going to be meeting with her next Monday. So I'm really excited about that meeting. Senator Helming talked to Senator Mayer about Auburn's issues, and she really took an interest on it and really wanted to sit down and meet with me. So I'll be meeting with her at 10 o'clock on Monday morning in Albany. So I'm there for NISCUS as well. So
which is?
It's our school board, it's our superintendents coalition that gets together twice a year for conferences. But when we go in March, it's always our lobby day.
Okay.
So we have our lobby day as well next week. So, you know, again, we are in the minority, but what we have to do is we have to try to align with other small city school districts that have the majority, but also having Senator Helming, Senator Antonacci, Assemblyman Finch reaching out to their constituents as well.
So where are you in the budget process right now? Forget the dollars for a minute. Where are you in the budget process?
We're presenting the budget to the board, each component of it right now. And now what we're doing is we're trying to figure out how to come up with $2.7 million.
So originally you were, so I just want to make sure that, because there's been a number of numbers floating around, you were before this week at 2.5 is a gap between expenses and revenues. Has that now shrunk to 2 million?
It has shrunk. It shrunk between about 1 million and about 1.7 million.
Okay.
1 million is if we want to use about $800,000.
I don't want to get to that yet. No.
Okay.
So without using fund balance right now, what is your gap? If you said
without fund balance, right now as of today, it's about 1.7.
Okay. So you can close that in a number of ways.
Correct.
One is that you mentioned fund balance,
which we probably will not use fund balance because we're using that for our emergency project.
So I was going to say, what is in your current fund balance?
About $3 million, 4%.
So of that 4 million, 1 is going to be wiped away for at least for the next 8 months.
Correct.
By the keep wanting to say West Middle, but the East Middle
Auburn
Junior High. Yeah. That's never going to change. The junior high project.
Correct.
Have you used fund balance before? So example, this year in your current budget, 17-18, are you using fund balance?
No.
And did you last year?
No.
Okay. So this is a structural issue. You're going in every year with a gap.
Correct.
All right. This is not because you're paying X and Y. This is a structural gap because of your funding formula as far as you're concerned.
Correct.
So is there any way to not have this discussion every January, February, March unless you get either more aid or Albany changes the funding mechanism?
We'll have this conversation continuously
Okay.
until the foundation aid formula is fixed or they come up with a new formula that addresses.
So are you, I know you have this meeting on Monday, but are you, it wasn't being done when you had the majority, where you had upstate
Correct.
senators in the majority. Many of the members of the Assembly and the Senate are now downstaters. Unless they have that common bond that the formula doesn't work for them. Are you hearing anything that's practical that says this is going to change?
No, I'm
Okay.
not.
So you can use fund balance, and it does sound like, I think there was at least one member of your board on Tuesday night who said that doesn't get us out of the situation.
Well, it actually makes our deficit bigger for the following years.
Right, okay.
So the more reserves you use, the more fund balance, all you're really doing is increasing your budget deficit more the following year and the following year, because we're not really reducing the budget.
So the likely, if you don't win the lottery, you don't get much more funding from Albany, you don't use your fund balance, the most obvious is cuts in positions, correct?
Correct.
So the number that's come up, it's been tossed around, is about 15 positions, correct?
Correct.
Any idea where they are or what disciplines are they?
We're still looking at numbers. We're still looking at programs. We're still looking at retirements. You know, like last year, and again, I don't want to say that retirements drive where we cut, but I don't like to.
But they impact it.
Absolutely they do. And if I can maneuver that into it, the last thing in the world I want to do is cut programs and cut people.
So did you do an early incentive last year?
We did.
And are you doing one this year?
I don't need to do one this year.
Okay.
I built something into the contract with negotiations.
Okay. So on an average year, separate from an incentive year, because those are not every year, correct?
Correct.
And you used to do personnel for the district,
I
so
did.
so
Yeah.
you would know this. I would hope. What is your average number of retirements that you get in a given year? Forget where they are, but do you get 10 to 15 retirements a year?
Well, I'm going to tell you, when I first started, we had 1 year of 40.
Okay.
I mean, it was just a huge year.
Your first year, they just
Yeah, it was my first year.
They just didn't want to deal with you.
They got out of it because they knew better, right? And of course, it decreased. Usually, we're around 10 to 12 to 15. This
Okay.
year, we have 5.
Okay, so that's where I'm going with this. So, and those 5 doesn't mean that those positions just go away. Some of those have to be replaced.
Correct.
They may be at a lower salary,
Correct.
but you would have to replace them, correct?
We'll have breakage.
Okay.
We'll have some breakage, maybe $25,000 of breakage. I'll use it, for instance, I have a school psychologist. Position has to be filled. So we will have to hire a new school psychologist, but probably $25,000 worth of savings. So
Okay.
that will go towards
But
the
at some
deficit.
point, I guess I would say this is cyclical by decades. You usually get this group of new hires that come in over a 5 or 10 year period. They stay for 30 years, and then you fill those positions. Is this a continual flow, or is this in groups for you? When you say 40, it sounds like those may have been people who were all hired around the same time,
Yeah.
X number of years ago.
Yeah, and they do go out in groups. You know,
Okay.
they do. And, you know, we're down so many positions. I mean, I brought some
Go ahead.
numbers. Just, you know, last year we cut 28 positions. The year before that, 13 and a half positions. The year before that, 4, and then 3. And then we had 1 year with no cuts. If you remember, that was the 2014-15. That was the year that we got our gap elimination money back early, because they moved us from an
And that's when
average
everyone
needs
thought the problem had been
was
solved.
solved.
Right.
And
okay.
that only dealt with gap elimination money. It did not deal with foundation aid. We're still in the formula, in the foundation aid formula, with data back in the early 2000s, 2001, 2002, 2003. right around those
Is there a
areas.
time, sorry to interrupt on
No.
the positions, is there a time, you say that goes back to the 2000s, is there a time like a census or contractually, the state does do a reevaluation every 10, 15, 30 years?
It's every 5 years, I believe. And so there is new census data out. They just choose not to use it.
Okay, so
And
they have the data, it's not necessarily changing the numbers for you.
Correct. And the
Okay.
reason they don't use it is because, unfortunately, for New York State, most of our towns, our cities, our poverty numbers have increased, which means they'd have to pay out more money. So that's why they use the data back years ago, and that's why some schools are being overfunded, because they're using data back in the early 2000s where they might have been a little bit in a worse place and have grown since then, but they still are receiving. We've got a couple of school districts in our county that get millions of dollars more than they should. So the state needs to really, I'm not saying that the state needs to spend more money. They need to look at the way they're allocating and reallocating.
Yeah, but the reality is that to reallocate, as long as you can cut somebody else's, but just don't take from me, is
Correct.
is the normal theory.
And think about Long Island
Right.
and downstate. That's where the power is. You take any of their money, what do you lose? Their voting power.
Right.
So, you know, I hate to say it that way, but it is political. And it's tough that political pieces get into educating, because all kids should have the same equal education. And you know, you look at cost spending per pupil, this is the part that I continue to go after. Auburn spends on an average $17,600 per pupil. The average for the state is $23,500.
Do you have an average for just this, the Cuyahoga-Boces area? Are you?
I don't have an average, but
Okay.
it's pretty high.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty high.
All right. So where is the board right now on what are they thinking? Have they given you direction that says we can't do a tax increase? By the way, what's your?
I believe it's around 2.2.
Okay. I know we go through this every year as well.
The tax
There's a
cap.
2% tax cap, but there are calculations that go in there. Sometimes it can be lower, and it has been before. But you could go to the public and ask for 2.2 right now without needing a supermajority.
Correct.
How much does 2.2 get you? And by the way, is the excuse me for a second, is the 2.2? Are you at that number right now and still have this deficit?
Yes, we are. That's built in.
So it's built in. So going to 2.2 doesn't cut it by any.
Correct.
It's only if you want to go to a.
Correct.
And you have done a supermajority
Once. Yeah.
How did that go?
We did pass it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But how many times can you go to the well?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the point. And we just did a capital project. So, and that capital project's huge for us, because now we have millions of dollars of infrastructural safety, those type of things that need to be done. It doesn't have to come out of our general fund. And we're only paying 15 cents on the dollar.
And is that capital project, the one that just passed, having any impact on this particular budget?
No, probably 2 years out
Okay.
before we have to go out for the first bond. So yeah, we're a couple of years out for that.
And how much do you think that impacts your budget?
How much?
Not hundreds of millions.
No,
Not millions of dollars.
No, and
hundreds of thousands.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And a 1% is a little over $300,000 for us.
Okay.
So bringing in 2% it's going to be between $650 and $700.
No, what I'm saying is your new bond payments are not going to be in the
Oh yeah, no.
multiple hundreds of thousands.
No,
Okay.
no.
So, board's getting information. Do you have a recommendation for them at this stage?
No, I really am sort of waiting until April 1st to see.
For the budget,
We're hoping
assuming
the
that
budget's
it'll be
going
on
to be on
time.
time. Correct.
And by the way, is that a practical reality with a new? I know they keep saying they're all walking in lockstep. There is no lockstep in Albany. There never has been. You have a party that wants to. You have some individuals within that majority that want to spend a lot more on a lot of different other things.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you get a budget on time.
Right.
So what's your worry there?
Again, then we move forward. We move
Okay.
forward with what we know, and we will plan accordingly to what we know.
When do you have to have your final budget ready to go to the voters in May?
a couple by the end of March. We have to have the second board meeting in March. We'll have to approve it.
So even though you're waiting for some dollar amounts, that will be tweaking it.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
What's the next steps for you?
Again, it's just looking at numbers, looking at how much we want to use in reserves, and unfortunately looking at programs, staffing, and making those cuts.
And you will not do that. You will not make those decisions of where and what cuts are till when. So let's say there are 50.
I said March. I didn't mean March. I meant end of April.
End of April.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant end of April. That's when we'll start looking at those cuts.
Because you have notice requirements for employees as well.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, that'll be in April.
Want to talk about two quick other items. We've got about 3 minutes left. The Citizen reported earlier this month, it wasn't the Citizen, but it was in the Citizen, there were some state numbers on dropout rates. It looked like Auburn's dropout rate dropped from 80% from last year to 75%.
Our graduation rate.
Graduation,
yes.
I'm sorry. Not grad.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping it was.
Yeah, graduation rate. Sorry, I misspoke on that. Why is this?
And again, please, and we get so locked up on the June numbers. Graduation rates based on August data. I don't know why the state reports it in June, but it's actually August. Our August graduation data.
So you deal with this every year?
Yep, it's over 81%. We actually had a decrease in about 4%. We were at 85% last year. We're at 81% this year.
Any reason why?
Our dropout rate was actually a little bit higher. It was a couple percentage points higher, from 11% down to about 13%.
And
we're up to 13%.
Do you see this as a one-time blip?
I do. I do. I think this year our graduation rate will be a lot higher.
Two last quick questions. Who's up for the board this year?
Bill Andre, Fred Cornelius, and Jeff Gasper.
And do you expect all three to run again?
One is definitely decided he's running. I think the other two are still undecided.
So people can pick up petitions when?
They can pick up March 25th.
Okay.
And have to be signed, ready to go by May 1st.
Okay.
And our budget vote is on May 21st.
Oh, May 1st. I had the wrong week. I'm sorry about that. Final question.
Yeah.
Somebody who's thinking of running for school board, other than being good at math with $2 million, what are you looking for in board members? Student
focused. What's best for kids? You know, looking at how we can make programs stronger for kids, how we can add programs for kids. And again, you'd love to have somebody with mathematical and finance piece as well. But, you know, we want anybody that's coming on.
You had that with Jason Leschman.
We did. We did. And he's still, don't worry, he still emails me. I get a lot of my information from him still. And that's what's great about past board members. They still reach out to us. But that's it. We've got to be focused on children.
We want to thank Jeff PIROZZOLO, the Superintendent of Schools for the Auburn District. You're going to be back here the week before May 1st to give a budget update, I think, with Lisa Green, your business manager, because she'll have the real numbers.
She will, because I make some stuff up.
Okay. But we do want to thank the Superintendent for giving us an update on the budget, as well as what is going on in the district. We'll be right back in a moment with a discussion on the Auburn Chamber Orchestra with their director and one of their board members to talk about their last two concerts. In fact, one of them is this Saturday at the Auburn Alliance Church at 2 p.m. It's their community family concert, so please stick with us for a few more moments. And on Tuesday, we'll be back with Cuyahoga County Economic Development Agency Executive Director Tracy Verrier, and later in the week, we'll have County Administrator Justin Woods and the members of the Visitor Center's leadership. That includes Auburn Business Improvement Director Stephanie DeVito and Courtney Casper to talk about what's going on at the Visitor Center. In the coming weeks, we'll have City Manager Jeff Dygert, as well as Cuyahoga Museum's new director, Kirsten Wise. Before we go, though, we would like to let you know that you can send us your ideas for guests or questions to insidegovernment@COZGUYTHO@AOL.com or Inside Government, 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York, 13021. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cuyahoga Community College. We want to thank you for watching. We hope you have a good night. Stick around for a few minutes about Auburn Chamber Orchestra, but otherwise have a great tomorrow.